Delighted to welcome our guest today, Gavin Wax. Gavin is awesome. He actually heads up the New York Young Republican Club here in New York City. It is one of the most influential clubs. It's amazing. Gavin, thanks for being here.
Danielle, it's great to be here, and thank you for having me on.
Oh my gosh, of course. Well, I really am looking forward to the gala this year. I'm excited whenever I get the emails because I'm like, oh, I'm going to be there. Okay, yay. And you're going to be there and so many other very awesome influencers. So it's going to be a really fun gala. You have Jack Posobiec and Marjorie Taylor Greene, who will be kind of speakers, right?
Correct. And we're expecting a third soon to be announced keynote, and obviously a bunch of special guests. It's a who's who in the conservative movement, commentators, pundits, elected officials, you name it, including yourself. So we're really excited. 500-person black tie dinner here in Manhattan. It's going to be a blast.
Wow, that's going to be amazing. Well, Gavin, tell us, what is it like to be kind of like MAGA, be right wing, but be running this club in New York City where usually people would think, oh, the conservative movement there is probably going to be, rhino, or if not, they'll just kind of be centrist. Like, what is that like to be a little bit more like right wing?
I mean, look, it's certainly a challenge in a place like New York, but I think a lot of people in New York, when they are conservative, they are Republican, they're all out. They're 100% committed because they know they're deep behind enemy lines. So us embracing a MAGA, America First agenda has been very successful for the club. It's earned us a lot of respect. It's gotten us to where we are in terms of our growth, in terms of our membership, the scale and size of our events. So it certainly has been paying off to be principally right wing and conservative, even in a place like New York City, because people are looking for alternatives. They're looking for a different worldview. They're looking for people who are willing to fight. And the whole, rhino centrist, moderate nonsense, it doesn't really play out in a place like, New York City. And when you have in New York City, the Republican enclaves, it's Trump country. You go to Staten Island, you go to South Brooklyn, you go to parts of Queens. These are people that love Trump, that love America, and that are certainly on the right of the political spectrum. And I think they're not looking for someone to, try to walk a fine line down the middle. They want someone who's going to be unabashed, stand unabashedly for the America First principles. And that's what our club has done. And that's why we've seen so much success.
Yeah. And I think when people have these kind of more centrist clubs, they become lackluster because people aren't really into them. A lot of people who may believe that way don't really want to go to anything political because they don't really care. And so I think our goal is maybe more to like red pill them, to bring them to our side, to get them more involved, but not for us to become kind of just nothings who don't really believe anything, because that doesn't really draw people in or create exciting events like you had, or just really any kind of fun or discussion, because they just don't really believe anything.
Yeah, it's just not good practice, like you said. I mean, we make a splash, we create controversy, we get headlines, and you build it, people will come. And if there was any success to be had in building a centrist or moderate type of organization, people would have done it and they would have seen success. But they haven't, and there has been no success on that front because the people aren't looking for that. The people that fall on that line politically are just kind of like you said, they're not as interested in getting involved. They're not out there, and they're kind of trying to lay low. And us providing an alternative, us providing an outlet for the millions of people in the greater New York City metropolitan area who hold these beliefs, this MAGA, America First viewpoint, we have provided a home for them. And there's certainly many of them. And even if we may not be a majority as a percentage, the numbers in a place like New York are so high that we're still talking about a lot of people. And I think people forget that just because the scale of the city and the state and the metro area is so big. Even if we are only 30-something%, it's still a lot of people when you do all the math out. So it's been a great ride. It's been very enjoyable, and we're going to culminate it at the end of the year with this big, beautiful event, as we mentioned earlier.
Wow. And it's also so exciting because we did really well in New York in the midterms. And so like you being involved in political things here, what was kind of something that you noticed along the way? Because I know that there were many people on our side who weren't totally sure how New York would go, because I think we obviously wanted to win for governor, but we came very close. And that was still a big victory for a place like New York. And we won other seats here. We picked up seats in the House here, which is super influential for the entire nation. So what did you kind of notice in New York?
Look, I think New York has benefited sadly from the from the sad state of our city, from how bad the state has become, the crime, the economic destitution, the corruption, all the other issues that have been plaguing this city and state for many years. I think this created fertile ground for a Republican resurgence, Republican renaissance, if you will. And that's what we saw. And we saw that in November. We saw people, or this month rather, we saw people come to the polls and they voted, and they voted in terms of a red wave in New York. I mean, we certainly didn't win at the top of the ticket, but I think it's safe to say that this was an unprecedented turnout for Republicans. To get in the mid 40s is unheard of in a deep blue state like New York. And we saw victories up and down the ballot in the House of Representatives, which most likely helped us retake the House at the national level. We saw gains in the state Senate, in the state Assembly, all up and down the ballot. There were successes that were had by Republicans, and a new coalition is formed in the city and state. It's a working class coalition. It's multi-ethnic, and it's pushing back against the excesses of the radical left in New York City and Albany, which have turned this city and state into a crime zone, a giant crime zone, and have driven millions of people to leave the Empire State for greener pastures. And people are saying enough is enough, and they're pushing back. And that's why we saw all these gains, all these successes, and we saw almost a victory at the gubernatorial level, as you mentioned, with Lee Zeldin coming close at 46% or so. So again, reason to be hopeful.